so it looks like on the call we have Eric Youngstrom, Andrew Freeman from Las Vegas, David McCord from Western North Carolina. A pleasure to put a face with a name. 480-965-0052 is...
I think that might be me, Heather. I'm doing the video on the computer and then the phone for the audio.
Okay, excellent.
I'm in here, Dave McKinnon.
Wonderful. And then Paul, oh, and then Heather in for Dave McKinnon. Wonderful. So are you in Arizona, Heather?
I am.
Nice. What a beautiful place to be from.
3 months ago it was.
Now it's just scorching hot.
Yes.
Got it.
To put it mildly.
Well, Paul and I were comparing notes about mosquitoes, and I'm hoping that if it's that hot, mosquitoes are a non-issue.
Not usually. That, I guess, is a benefit.
Right. Okay. Anybody on the call that I missed? I'm going to click a button and everybody stayed on. Yes. All right. So the people we have, so Heather is representing Division 5, and Paul is representing Division 12, Section 9, and John Comer is Division 12, the whole enchilada. And David, are you Division 12, Section 9 as well?
Section 9 with Paul.
Excellent. So we have a lot of depth on the bench for D12. And then Andrew is with Division 53. And I'm president of Division 53, and I'm finishing up as the section representative for assessment for Division 5. Also invited to the call was Claudia Antunia from Division 52, International Psychology. And then over the weekend, we forwarded the email around to the president and president-elect of Division 52, but I haven't heard, I don't know whether they'll be able to join us today or not. And with me is Lizzie Wilson. Lizzie is past president of Helping Give Away Psychological Science, which is the nonprofit organization that's been working with us on this. And so I believe I'm sharing screens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
if I click this, oh, that's playing the animation. If I click that, that doesn't do what I expected. Okay, so there we go. So we have a slide deck as a Google document, Google Slides. And how many people on the call already are used to working with Google products?
Hmm.
A little bit.
So I'm seeing, I'm aware of this, but not super comfortable to a little bit. So we've got sort of a range. The grant proposal that you all have a link to is a Google Doc, and this is another Google, it's the Google version of PowerPoint, and we also use a lot of Google spreadsheets, and the reason that we like using the Google products is because they're easy to share across institutions. So you all have, we'll send around a copy of the slide deck. After, oh, and I should be recording. Sorry. I'm doing this at home. So this is my home office, and you can hear my dog barking. As proof. Is it already recording? Oh, it's auto recording. I set that up at the beginning.
Nice.
Yeah, so that I didn't forget. How awesome. Second blush of the call. All right, so our goal for today is to introduce the people. This proposal involves 4 divisions. and the Division 12 and Division 53 people have not met each other in person before, so this is already a win. The blue here is a hyperlink to the document that you've had for at least a week, and if you were part of the division when we agreed to go ahead and submit this in December, then it's the same document that's been around for a while. Want to give a quick introduction to the nonprofit, to HGAPS, because especially people in Division 12, you haven't heard about this before, and what we'll see is that this is a very significant partner in the project. And then we want to review progress on the assessment center. And this is the first teleconference that we've had people from Division 12 on. So for you, it will feel like, hey, this is the first call, this is like a kickoff, but we actually have been working for 6 months, and we have a lot of raw material ready. And so this is really the kickoff for phase 2. Because I'm going to South Korea in less than 2 weeks, we asked to schedule 2 calls in a row. And so what I want to do by the end of this call is set a cliffhanger, have some homework, things for you all to be able to sleep on and follow up with, so that we actually have all of our ducks in a row to be able to follow through over the rest of the summer. Questions so far?
No.
Heather, what did David tell you to expect?
He had forwarded me the email, and I took a brief look at the grant proposal, and he just kind of asked me to sit in and be his eyes and ears for this.
Excellent.
So not much.
All right.
A little bit about getting the assessments online and kind of a brief overview.
Excellent. All right. So we've gone through who we have from each of the divisions, and Lizzie has jotted down the names. So how many of you have already heard of HGAPS?
I have. John Comer.
So that was more yeses than, so HGAPS is a nonprofit that started at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. It originally started as a student service organization, and Lizzie is the, depending on how you count, the 2nd or 3rd president of the club at North Carolina. The club incorporated and formed a nonprofit charity in North Carolina that got 501c3 recognition from the IRS in February of last year. And the club has grown to more than 40 members here at North Carolina. We have a sister chapter at Appalachian State. How far is Appalachian from where you are, David?
It takes about, it's a hard 2 hours and 45 minutes.
This is a big state.
It is when you get here.
I was like, y'all are both west. That must be close.
That's what everybody thinks from Raleigh and Chapel Hill. But when you come here, I'll drive you up there and you'll see.
Okay, excellent. I'm sure it's a beautiful drive.
It is. 2-lane roads.
So John has heard, because John's been involved with SCAP for many years as well. John's heard HGAPS grow from twinkle in the eye to, hey, it's really a club, to, hey, wait, it's a company. Hey, wait, IRS just recognized it. Hey, wait. So very, very rapid growth. Also in the grant, the big picture of what we got the grant to do was to build an assessment engine. So what is happening is HGAPS and UNC Chapel Hill have partnered. Chapel Hill is providing the license to Qualtrics, and HGAPS is providing the student person power to program things into Qualtrics, debug them, check the scoring. And so we have a library of assessments that have gotten put into Qualtrics. And what this grant is doing is saying, okay, we've built this library. How do we actually make it so that people can find it and use it? And so one of the big pieces of homework is, now that we actually have the pieces, who do we need to talk with at Division 12 to be able to build a battery that people would find useful? And where do we put it? Does it go onto the Division 12 members page? Does it go onto another website? We checked before this call and saw that Division 12 still has the members Find a Therapist directory. And so we may want to think about, do we connect those at the back end? So we've got the pieces. The big value of having so many people from Division 12, Division 53, Division 5 involved is thinking about, okay, now that we've got the ingredients, where do we want to position this on the web? We have some measures that are designed for adults to fill out about themselves. We have others, with Division 53 being a strong partner, we have others for parents to fill out about their kids. And we have a third set that may be age appropriate for teenagers, occasionally for younger kids to fill out. And we already know that those are different audiences, and we would want to frame those things in a different way. Another, with Division 12 and Division 5, both on, or 53, both on the call, another thing to think about is, do we want to have these be things that would go straight to consumer? Or are we making these more, is our first audience the membership of Division 12 and Section 9? Are we positioning this more as, hey, here's a free toolkit that that society members might use? The original outgrowth of this, Paul David, do you know Damian Grasso?
Do not.
No, I know the name, but
Yeah.
have any contact.
So five years ago, he was working with Division 12, and the big project that year was gathering the best free measures, the PDFs of them, and putting them up on the Division 12 website as a member benefit. Hey, we've got a treasure chest of free assessments. And so this is actually growing out of that and saying, hey, rather than just being a PDF, we could go ahead and put it in Qualtrics, and it could get scored ahead of time, and it could have links to resources. So this is our third CODAPAR in this space, and a natural outgrowth of that. We have different professional society pages, and Heather, one of the things to talk about with David is you have more of a sense of where this is going. Does it make sense to have any of this represented on the D5 page? And then, because we have young people involved, like Lizzie, they're like, we could put this on a Facebook page. We could, if we're going straight to consumer, Facebook actually lets you target and boost to particular age groups or audiences, and so there are ways that we could try to do some really neat dissemination pieces with that. So this is a very busy slide, but this is the big picture, and you also have it in the proposal. Any questions before we hop off of this? John, do you have a sense? So I know SCAP just decided to cancel our Find a Therapist directory because it didn't have a lot of therapists in it, and we sort of gave up competing. Do you have a sense of which way things are trending for D12? Do we still have John?
It looks like John's microphone is off.
Unmute. Now you're unmuted. Oop. John? All right. First cliffhanger.
Hey, sorry, my ClickPad is having some issues, and I had trouble unmuting, but I was with you the whole time.
Nice.
So Division 12, definitely all plans are to continue to find a therapist. As with Division 53, though, we don't have any, we can't account for, or we can't, account for quality. These are members, but not necessarily good members, good practitioners. So we have those disclaimers.
Right. Okay. But the plan is that that's going to continue for probably the rest of 2019 into 2020. So
yeah, there's no discussions in the air of, it's a member benefit. So no discussions in the air of discontinuing it.
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense then for us to think about, is there a way to, when people finish taking an assessment, if the result looks like you may want to talk with someone about this, put a link to the directory right there.
Yeah, definitely. I would include, we've included some disclaimers just like Division 53 did. And I imagine within this space, you'd want to include disclaimers as well.
Yep.
That these are not, we're putting you in touch with members of this division who practice in this area. But, something along the lines of that doesn't hold this program accountable if there's a problem with a therapist.
Yes. So that may go into the back message inside Qualtrics,
yeah.
or it may be on the landing page. That language is already on the D12 Find a Therapist page,
Yeah.
right? So
yeah, and I think Division 53 had a similar thing when they were doing it.
Right. So if we just drop you on that page, then that language is already there.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. This was just to add eye candy to the slide deck. These pictures were in the proposal as well. The part that was really interesting to me is that that's exactly the same car engine inside the Audi S4 and the Spyker C8. But they're packaged differently, and they're intended for different audiences. And the aha for us is, hey, if we put these in Qualtrics once, we can spend all the time debugging the scoring and making sure that everything is accurate once. And then the same adult version of the PHQ-9 could go onto the Division 12 website, onto Effective Child Therapy. Mom, let's see how stressed you are. And so it could be several different funnels all going to the same assessment engine underneath. The other metaphor that I was thinking about for the grant proposal, rather than one engine, many models, was an assessment sandwich. And so the part that is really valuable about having people from the divisions on the call is thinking about, okay, what web pages does the division already have? What member benefits? What assets does the division already have? And how do we want to connect this assessment engine sandwich to the pages that already exist? The middle, all the different assessments, that's what HCAPS has been building. And as we'll see, Lizzie and team have been very, very busy and have a lot of assessments already programmed in. And then the other bun, the back end, is what resources do we want to connect to? What's an ethical, responsible, helpful set of things to put on the back end? So the welcome page, what we're talking about would be on Division 53 as a consumer-facing site called Effective Child Therapy. And so we could put a click here if you want to do a quick assessment about your child. Click here if you want to do an assessment about yourself. And that's what we're talking about with the welcome page. Um, the the square brackets are my quick and dirty way of making a checkbox. So this is calling out, this is homework. This is something for us to do. We want to think about, for each division represented, is there a website that we would want to have a link from the division site taking us to the assessment center? As we get more creative, we might also want to have a version for Facebook or a version for Twitter. These are all things that I'm too old to know what to do with, just that they exist.
Eric, one quick thought. If you go back to
Yep,
the last slide, yeah. So in talking about a welcome page or points of entry into the program, a lot of social media and even search engines now have triggers. So like if you're searching for, how to hang yourself, there's certain triggers that they say you seem like you might need some support, and they link to resources. I know Twitter has things, and Instagram if you're searching for certain types of images. So there might be something there where there's certain things that when people are searching for depression, or it could say, are you interested in looking at whether you might suffer from depression?
Yeah, if I'm understanding, so that sounds great. I am a heck yes to that. Do you or someone in D12 already know someone at Twitter or Instagram?
No, I don't.
Would you have any interest in writing a memo together to
Yeah, sure.
concern?
Yeah, definitely.
That would be great. And your presidential task force, on any of your presidential task forces have people that already would know people?
I'm not sure, because some of them are more machine learning. But yeah, you and I should touch base, and I think that's a really good point of entry, because it might be people who aren't even thinking that they want an assessment, but that might be an important audience that's definitely being missed.
Yep, that's great. And then the feedback and resources at the back end, the therapist directory is one obvious thing for us to link to. The Division 12 and Division 53 both have put together fact sheets and websites about what are evidence-based practices, what are, and so that would be another quick win to think about what are the assets or best information that we've already curated that we would want to point people towards. Any other ones pop into mind? I was so rewarded by giving John 5 seconds of silence to think in last time. I'm going to go ahead and do it again. So this is an early version of HGAPS. This is the student club circa 2016?
2016, yeah.
First time that we got t-shirts, we have gotten purple, gray, and now a really nice light green, sort of mint green t-shirt. And we keep getting more and more t-shirts every year because we keep growing. And the person with the hair sort of standing is Mian Leong, who was the graduate student that started the club initially. And Mian was the only graduate student to receive the presidential citation as citizen psychologist last year from Jessica Henderson Daniel. So that was really, really neat to have his work building this recognized that way. This we're not going to spend a lot of time on today, not having Division 52 on the call, but one of the other things that we talked about in the proposal was we also want to lay the groundwork to build this not just in English, but also in other languages. So we'll go through some of the numbers, but what we're looking at here is a screenshot of a Trello site where we are organizing the different translations that we've gathered. We are up to 27 measures that we have in at least 2 languages, and the most languages that we have is also, by coincidence, 27. So we have a couple of these measures that have been gathered in 27 languages, and then the rest of them we've gathered in at least one other one for us to go ahead and add it to the library. The most common second language is Spanish. It varies whether that is Mexican Spanish, European Spanish, or South American Spanish. And Spanish is a priority that we want to be more systematic about translating and adding to. The other language that we talked about in the proposal was Chinese. Andrew Freeman has a graduate student from Taiwan who is fluent in Chinese. English is the second language. I have a new graduate student coming also from Taiwan, who English is a second language. And so we have not a lot of people on the team, but a lot of familiarity and a lot of commitment to making the resources accessible. The other language that we could make headway on very quickly is Korean, because my wife and I teach there every summer. But Korean, anybody on the call Korean? From a public health perspective, Korean not the same priority as Chinese, because it's 45 million people instead of 1.3 billion. So that was the other part of the thought process with picking the languages. So next chunk of slides is talking about what do we already have to put in the sandwich? What are the measures that we have programmed in? Questions before we go deep on this part? So where you have it organized into things that a mom or a parent would fill out, things that a child or a teenager would fill out, and then things that an adult would fill out about themselves. And my assumption is that Division 12, Section 9, the most important is the last. That would be what most people would be expecting to use. And then, oh, how nice. There are kid versions and parent versions available too. And Division 53, we would flip the script. Since we're doing this on a shoestring and with volunteers at a nonprofit as our big programming team, the way that we've prioritized is to not try to do everything, but to focus on the most common topics first. Same as with the translations, we're like, it would be awesome to do everything, but we don't have the resources for it. So let's start with English, Spanish, and Chinese covers half of the population of the world. So focus on the most common. And what we also are prioritizing are the free measures, so we don't have to pay licensing fees, so that we're allowed, which is exactly what Division 12 was doing with the assessment repository. So what we have ready to go now is a survey that's using logic. So answers to early questions like demographics is changing what the follow-up questions are. So if the person says, I am a parent, I want to take this about my kid, it is going to queue up a different set of depression and anxiety and ADHD questions than if someone went to the Division 12 site and said, let's talk about me. to know more about me, and so the very first demographic questions are going to route the person a different way. We also have questions to turn on and off. No, I don't want to talk about ADHD. Yes, I do definitely want to talk about ADHD. And as I was looking at that earlier, we want to get input about what's the right size for that, how many different options before it starts to get overwhelming. This is the schematic of how it's programmed. The part that we want to accomplish with today's call is just thinking, does a pointer show up? You guys see my key cursor?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mhm.
For this call, what we're really interested in focusing on is what are the websites that your divisions have that would make sense to link to this, and what content would you want if you wanted a separate page or a paragraph on one of your pages. HCAPS and Division 12 are working together on an assessment center. Click here if you want to take the assessment center. So those are the parts that that we really want your help thinking through. All the rest of this middle, all the very busy middle, that's what Lizzie and Josh Langfus and HCAPS have already built out and programmed. And then the other part, the second bun of the sandwich, is the final scoring and resources, and that would be another place to get input from you and your institutions and constituencies about what else would we like to have here. So what it looks like right now is, so we're looking at one of the Qualtrics surveys, and it is already built so that it'll detect, are you looking at this on a phone or are you looking at this on a laptop or a tablet? If you go to the website from a big screen, you're going to see this version. If you're going from a phone, it's going to flip and show you this version. So everything that we've built is designed to be ambidextrous and work whether you're hitting it from a phone or a bigger screen. And then this is the first draft of the demographics question, which is, now you can sort of see how this is routing. I'm a teenager taking this about me. I'm an adult taking this about me. I'm an adult taking this about my kid. That's deciding, are we serving up the parent sandwich, the teen sandwich, or the adult about self sandwich? Some basic demographics, and we can go. We can talk more about what would be the right level of detail to capture here. The other thing that this actually just reminded me, the way that this is built, it is not tracking IP addresses. It is not. It's not capturing identifiable information. So the reason that we put this in is if some of the measures have different norms, we would want to add back this information so that we could match it up with the right norms. We have another version where, because we're scrubbing the IP addresses, we asked again, where are you in the world now, and where would you like to know about resources? So we added back 2 questions so that we could send people to, if you're in Arizona, don't be talking about options in Boston or Portland. Try to get a little bit more geographically matched up. And then this would be, if we're building out a clinician-facing version, the idea behind these questions is that a clinician could say, I want to customize this for my client. I want to have them do the ADHD, the anxiety, the substance use. They don't need the bipolar assessment. And so it's a series of questions which are turning on or off modules. We think that this would be a nice feature to allow people to customize the battery. What we don't know is where the sweet spot is about how much. Just give me an assessment, give me a core battery. We could probably, we need your input about what you would want as a core battery and what you would want to turn on or off. Questions to this point? All right, so what would be your favorite word? Flabbergasted? Gobsmacked? I was gobsmacked when I saw how many measures the HCAPS group has already gotten programmed into Qualtrics. So what we're looking at here is, the list of the content areas that we found free measures and targeted them to add to the Qualtrics. So the way that we pick the short list is based on prevalences and what people working in private practice mental health settings would be likely to encounter. So we've got the common issues covered, and in the adult version of the battery, so this would be for Division 12, this would be sort of what we have ready off the shelf, would be the PHQ-9 for depression, which is what is getting put into the medical records and others. The PCL-5 is a screener for PTSD. The SCARED for anxiety, not the GAD-7. SCARED goes into more depth and covers other types of anxiety, not just generalized anxiety. The ASRS for ADHD, two different options for bipolar disorder. That's my thing, couldn't help myself. And then the CAGE is a quick screen for substance misuse. If we're serving up the parent version of the sandwich, we've got the SNAP-4 for ADHD, and we're looking at getting the SNAP-5. PHQ-9 again for depression, SCARED for anxiety, CPSS for PTSD, PGBI-10M for bipolar, and the POSIP for substance use. And then the inventory of callous and unemotional traits for ODD. So that one, that's more narrow than what we might want to stick with in the first pass. Similar measures for self-report for teenagers. And then this is the first draft of what the end message looks like. So John, here's the first draft of the language you were talking about. This is only an assessment, not a diagnosis. If you feel like further examining your mental health, make an appointment with a mental health professional. This is one of the more complicated examples where we've got score ranges, and we're not saying you just got a diagnosis of bipolar or depression. We're like, this is a high risk score, this is a low risk score. And then the mental health resources is starting to, that's the proof of concept of we could link to D12's Find a Therapist directory. Other things that we could include on the second bun of the sandwich are, if we're making this for clinicians as our main audience, we can put a lot more information about the measures. So this link takes us to the top page of a family of around 150 pages on Wikiversity, going into more detail. What do we know about the PHQ-9? What's the evidence of validity for the PHQ-9? We also, again, more for clinicians and students, we have examples of applying these to cases. So those would be the vignettes. And we also have pages organized around topic. What would you want to do to follow up for evaluating ADHD? What would you want to do to follow up for evaluating substance misuse? Here's the flabbergasted or gobsmacked part. We have all of these measures already. This is true?
Mhm.
All I'm about to fall off my yoga ball again. We already have all of these in Qualtrics.
Wow.
And all of these.
How long has the group been working on programming all of this?
And all of these.
Oh,
And all of these. And these. So more than 60 measures. And when we say that they're programmed in, we're doing a couple things differently than I've ever done when I've been programming surveys as a researcher. One thing that we're doing differently, how many of you already use Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey?
mhm.
So Qualtrics can add up the responses on the fly. So Qualtrics actually could score the survey while people are taking it. And when I was in research mode, I didn't know that. I never tried to do that. And it can add up it can score it and pass the score through to another page in the survey. So what we're doing on the feedback page is actually adding up this person's scores, and we're giving it to them on the feedback page. And this part is a little bit technical, but for the stakeholders on this call, this makes a lot of sense. What we're actually doing, so it's an anonymous survey, no IP address, no identifying information in it, but on the feedback page at the end, it's scoring it all for you, saying, here are your scores. Click here if you want to print it. Click here if you want to download it. And so the use case that we're thinking is a person may not already have an appointment scheduled, but they take the survey, they get some scores that they want to talk with someone about. They can save a copy of it then and email that or print it and bring it to the appointment. So so one of the things that made this a lot of work was having the score get done in Qualtrics and pass through to the summary page. The part that was a huge amount of work was debugging that and making sure that that was accurate. So Lizzie, the question was, how long have you been working on this?
So my team within HGAPS has been working on it for about a year. We started like this past fall coding most of these in, but we'll talk about this a little bit later. We did a trial run for the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance, which also we programmed in 9 questionnaires for that. So like total it's 63, including the 9 that we've done previously, which was done before this year.
So HGAPS existed before the grant, and we were starting the pilot before we submitted the grant, and we've been continuing to build on it. And this is exactly what they told me in graduate school. You basically need to have done a lot of the grant before you are competitive to get the grant. But Lizzie and her team have been red teaming the measures, and so when we're checking, we we take a version on paper, type it into Qualtrics, and then compare the hand scoring to the scoring that we're seeing at the end of the Qualtrics. Many of them, we have code in SPSS or R, and so we're triple checking to make sure that the numbers are accurate before we move it over to, okay, we think we're ready. And what was striking to me about this too, I just taught the assessment class here again, and we had discussion. One of the measures that we programmed in, the grad students were also using at the clinic, and I'm like, oh, well, send me what you guys are using, and it was an Excel sheet with no documentation, no author. And I'm like, has anybody checked that this is actually doing it right? And I'm like, okay, so this is a big upgrade over what we've been doing at our own clinic. So the pilot that Lizzie mentioned, we had a grant with the Depression and Bipolar Support Alliance last summer, and they agreed to have us rebuild their screening center. So they already had a website where you could come and take a survey, and what that was doing essentially was just adding up the raw items and spitting out a number. It wasn't giving them links to resources. It wasn't giving them any interpretive context. And we're like, we could actually upgrade this pretty substantially. So everything that we're talking about doing, programming it into Qualtrics, we did our trial run last summer, writing the language in a way that makes sense to consumers. We already have been through 6 iterations of focus grouping and debugging that with the advocacy group last summer, getting to the University of North Carolina and DBSA and both of their lawyers being okay with going live with this. We got to their end of last summer. So what we're looking at now is you could Google DBSA Screening Center, and it'll take you right to this page. And the 9 assessments that we put up fall of last year have been used 20,614 times as of this morning. The most common measures are the adult about self measures. So the PHQ-9, the hypomania checklist, and the adult version of the SCARED all have 4,000 to 6,000 uses each. So for Division 12, this is a great scouting report of, yeah, so you've got all these parent measures and kid measures, but what about adults? Our clinicians, our viewership is mostly going to be people working with adults. That's exactly what has been the biggest hit on DBSA. So we're doing great in terms of going through the deck and getting you up to speed. What we want to do between now and tomorrow is answer any questions, have discussion. I have 2 homework assignments for everyone as well. The bigger homework assignment, the most important, is now that you have a sense of what we're doing and what the product is, who should we keep talking to at each division? The example with SCAP, with Division 53, is they have 2 different websites, a clinician member facing and a general public facing. And we need to know who should we work with to get permission to or to shape things so that they're ready to go onto the membership site, onto the public facing site. The who edits, this is the webmaster for Division 53. so there, and my experience is that there are sort of two parts to the getting something ready to actually put on the website. One is that we need to engage the leadership of the division. So John, it's great having you on the call as president of D12, and David and Paul, huge having you on the call as the people that are really embedded with Section 9. So we've got the right people on the call, and then the second part is what other process do we need to do? For Division 53, I'm expecting, I have another call set up just with Stefan and Mandy and a couple other people. I've got a call set up with the web editor and a task force who are going to talk about the stuff. And then when we get to, we get off that call, I'm hoping to have a plan of, okay, send a draft of the page, run it by these three people, and when they all say yes, then Stefan can go ahead and put it up on these two websites. This is the most complicated thing we're trying to accomplish with the call, figuring out, do we know the right people to get to yes, we're ready to add a link to the Division 12 page? And if so, where? And then once we get to yes, who do I need to have from HGAPS talk to who to actually get this linked?
Yeah, so from Division 12, I would say anything with regard to expert input on assessment or things like that, that would be David's group. But anything related to getting it posted, things like that. I would say the three people that would be good to connect with are Tara Craighead, who's the director of operations. She's the Lynn Canty of Division 12. Damian Grasso is the person who actually uploads things on the web, and myself. So I think Tara's the easiest one to reach in that she responds almost. You almost wonder sometimes if she was writing the email to you before you even sent it. And I also have a weekly call with her as well. So that's sometimes I can fall behind on email. So I would say those are the three people. And Damien's not someone who would say yes or no something would go on, but he's the one who would physically do it.
Yep. So that sounds. So Damien is. So Tara is the Lynn counterpart,
and Damien is Stefan.
Stefan. Got it.
Yeah. And I'm the you.
Yep. Okay.
And David and his group are the experts.
So then, so Heather.
Yes.
With Division 5, I'm not aware of Division 5 having a either consumer-facing or a practitioner-facing website or section of the websites.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I think it's primarily membership.
Right. So I'm writing a blurb for the Division 5 newsletter to let people know that this is happening and Division 5 is supporting it. But I don't think that there's the same urgency to figure out who the web editor is and where exactly are we putting this. I think that like there'll be a newsletter column, and then we'll see if there's interest or how things grow organically over time.
Okay.
Does that seem reasonable?
That sounds good to me, and I'll let David know about it.
There are three other ways when I think about Division 5 and the constituency there are three other ways that I see this connecting with Division 5 long term. One is Division 5 has a lot of people with a lot of expertise about assessment. And so as we link more to things on Wikipedia and Wikiversity, I would love to have that be on their radar and let them know. If you're interested in this topic and you have some extra time, feel free to look at this, feel free to make suggestions. So I would love to engage the expertise in that way. And I'm going to say this in the newsletter, so it's not I don't see patients, I don't need a clinical assessment. Well, actually, if you like thinking about assessment, here's another way you could help. Way two is that we have a lot of goodies that we're adding around teaching and statistics, the scoring, interpretation, teaching, the psychometrics piece. That's not featured in this grant proposal, but that is also happening in the background. And way number three is I ran for president of D5, and so we'll know by convention whether I'm changing from section rep to president or just cheering from the wings. But if I am president, the presidential initiative will be, how's about we look at some wiki? How's about we think about using some of these things in our teaching of statistics and psychometrics?
Sounds excellent to me. But then again, I like the psychometrics.
Happy dance. So Division 52, I'll may be able to be on the call tomorrow, but I'm also working on reorganizing the team around translations, with the two big priorities being a focus on Spanish and a focus on Chinese. Does anyone have colleagues or students or people that would make sense to plug in on either team Spanish or team Chinese?
So
I may be able to contribute some undergrads to help that are fluent in Spanish natively. They're
same
not.
here.
I mean, they're not professional translators, but they spoke Spanish as a first language at home. And it would
Same
be
here.
Mexican, Central American kind of Spanish.
Excellent.
And Miami, lots of undergrads, majority being Cuban.
Do you guys have a sense of how different Cuban from Mexican would be?
So my group does all sorts of informal translations all the time. We've never had any problems in Miami, but I have been told when people try to take them out of Miami, there's some things that don't transfer well. I think Cuban Spanish is a little more informal. And then also it's so, in Cuban American, especially in Miami, it's so integrated with English that there's a lot of phrases that are not formal Spanish, but so like, like the way you would say, like, call me back, the way people in Miami would say it. Elsewhere in the country, sometimes it sounds like you're saying, like, call my behind, and it doesn't make any sense. It's just literal. So I've been told that there are lots of those sorts of things that don't translate. Yeah, but the main things would be the same. I think it's just a little more informal.
All right. I've jotted a note to self to follow up with UNLV and FIU U of M about ways of engaging around the Spanish. The Chinese, anyone have loose ties with Chinese?
I can just Yinling.
Yep.
on the UNLV side.
So the third ace that I'm holding with Chinese is that I am collaborating some with a professor in Shanghai that is very interested in assessment research and translating things very rapidly there. And I'm trying to get together with him while I'm in Seoul this summer. I visited him in Shanghai and Beijing last year, and we're seeing if there's a way of putting that together again. The part which is I didn't know this, but the part which is interesting is there are two versions of Chinese. There are two scripts. There's traditional and there's simplified. And what Andrew's student and my student read is the traditional, which is only used in Taiwan, Singapore, and Hong Kong. What mainland uses is the simplified version. So we have, when we need to go back through, actually Yenling looked at a bunch of the stuff and she's like, this is all simplified. It's all for mainland China. I would want to redo this for Taiwan. So it's a different script, but she's able to read it and say, I know what they're, and I'm like, so how close together are these? And she explained that it's kind of like American English and British English, and one's written in cursive and the other's written in sans serif. So you can sort of recognize the mapping, and then like John was describing, some of the phrases and idioms are different. But she said that it would be much faster to work from what we've got and rebuild it than to start just from the English. So, all right. Anybody with ties for Arabic or Hindi? It turns out if we could cover those 5 languages, if we could do English, Spanish, Chinese, Arabic, and Hindi, we would reach 4 out of 5 readers on the planet. So this is another example of the sort of algorithm that we're using here. We don't have the bandwidth to do everything, so let's focus on the best measures. Let's focus on the free measures. Let's focus on the measures on the topics that people are most likely to use. Let's focus on the languages that are most spoken, so that we can see how far we can make our $8,000 from APA plus matches from the other divisions. So this whole thing is less than $20,000, and it's really, really impressive to see what we've been able to do. We're not even done. So, all right, so we've got Division 12 mapped out, Division 53 mapped out. So John, to make sure I've got this, walk me through how we get from all right, so David and Paul, what so this is the second homework thing. For you guys, slide number 20 in the deck is here's what we were thinking would be a good start for Division 12 and people working with adults to be interested in. And so we already have a version built out with these questionnaires programmed, but that's not the only things that you could. So we've got sort of, if you think that this looks good as a rough draft or a good thing to start, we can finish building this and actually have Division 12 Section 9 membership. We could send a link over the list and say, would you like to focus group this, try it, give us feedback? Or we could set up another call just with people who are interested in looking at this and giving us feedback, really going deep on the survey. Or you could say, well, it's a shame that you picked that one, but I see that you also have on slide, you picked the PHQ-9, but I see that you've got all these other ones on the menu. You know what Division 12, Section 9 would think is much more exciting would be to start with the, it would really warm my heart if somebody wanted to start with the GBI, but I doubt it. So you could look at from slides 27 to 30, we're listing, these are all the other things that we have a la carte that we could slide into the core battery if you wanted.
Okay.
And then if there's something obvious to you, because you're the content experts, if there's something obvious to you, why'd you pick that for ADHD? Everybody uses the fill in the blank. Or, you know, it's great that you covered all those, but one of the things that we need to evaluate routinely is the write-in option. Suggest another measure, or suggest another topic, and we would love to get that input. So John, the question is, okay, after David and Paul look at the menu and say, looks good for a first draft, let's try it out, focus group it, or they say, we want you to swap these out. Now we've got a menu that we think is ready for membership. Between that and sending an email to you, Tara, and Damien to get something onto the website, what would be the next actions? You're muted again.
All right. So anything that's like a what do you call it? Like an easy text comment or a link, he's always, can get it up within a day or something. Anything that's if we're talking about something more complicated, and I don't know what you, would this be like a link to something that's already built elsewhere, or would this be about building some sort of environment within the Division 12 website?
Could be either one. The version, the template would be this. So what this screening center has is links to the Qualtrics that we programmed last fall. So we could have just a link to the assessment center is just a link that gets added to a D12 page, or we could have a little bit of text. A little bit of text. So if we do a Google search for DBSA, yep. It's like I searched for it this morning. What we did was we drafted, it's just 3 sentences and the links, but we drafted something and they're like, we want to use this font. We're like, great. And we want to change these words, still good. So this is not a long page, but it still is their page. So we wanted to make sure that they were happy with the wording, and they actually supplied all the other blang because it's their page.
Yeah. Why don't we schedule a call with Tara and just make sure that there's nothing I'm not thinking about. And I would run it by the board. We probably get a quick turnaround. We just do it by email.
Yep.
Not wait for a monthly board call. And I'm sure, I don't think anything we're talking about here is controversial, especially given that the division already approved this long ago. So my sense is that there would be no obstacles, and everyone knows about the initiative. So, but why don't we schedule a call with Tara, and then that way we'll just make sure, and maybe Damien as well, and make sure we know what are the steps here, so that we're not surprised later on if it turns out it's more complicated than I'm anticipating, because I've been known to think things will be not complicated, and then they are.
I'm glad that never happens to me. Okay, that actually, I think we're done early, and I think we already took care of the bigger homework assignment that I was going to give us for tomorrow of knowing who the people were to follow up with. So this simplifies to David and Paul can go back over the slides, especially the topics that we picked. Is there another topic that would be adding a lot of value to the membership to add? And are there any measures that you would want us to substitute or put in the hopper to get programmed in later? So the feedback on the sandwich fix-ins is the other thing for us to do. I don't want to jinx it, but if people have time blocked on the calendar for tomorrow, what we could do, so we would have Jess and Josh also.
Yeah.
Do we want to try to do a focus group or a walkthrough? What would be the best use?
What did you have in mind for to look at the assessment batteries and see what could change about them?
Yeah.
Or
actually maybe take one and.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah. We could also use it to figure out how we could tailor them to suit the needs more.
Yep.
Of one group or another. But
all right. So agenda for tomorrow is review the menu. Let us know if there are things that you want added or swapped. And then what we'll do tomorrow is go through a survey together, and we're going to do our first focus group, go through a survey. I expect that it'll take less than, if a person actually were taking it for themselves, it would be probably about 5 to 7 minutes. So I bet that that'll be a half hour for us to sort of go through, discuss. And then the third thing will be thinking about, okay, if we were putting this on Division 12, make edits to this. If we were going to put a landing thing, if we're going to put a little context on the Division 12 website or the Effective Child Therapy website, this is a first draft. Change it. Search and replace DBSA with SCP or SCP Division 12 Section 9 or the and if we have, if now I'm getting frisky, but I'm like, if we already have that language drafted by the end of the call tomorrow, we can send that to our respective divisions, and then we might be able to actually pilot this in the next month.
Eric, is tomorrow's call, are you planning it for how long?
Well, this one, the ask was for 90 minutes and we're done early. Tomorrow, I think, also, I'll ask for 90 minutes because everyone's always happy when you end early and they're always grumpy when you go long.
So so tomorrow I can only be on the call till 4, and then at 4 o'clock I have a Division 12 call with the presidential trio, Tara, and the treasurer and secretary. And I was actually wondering, if you wanted to hop on for 5 minutes on that call. So it's 4 to 5. It's not too big of an agenda. We'd probably be done around 4:30 or so, but maybe you want to text me when you end this call. I'll have to hop off at 4 for this call, but there's a possibility that tomorrow would be a good time to just sort of remind everyone this project, and might be good in sort of keeping things moving very smoothly when it's time to adjust the website.
Okay, it's so much better to be lucky than good. That sounds really, really lucky.
Yeah, but also we'd want to make sure let's only use like 5 minutes or 10 minutes at most of the time on that call.
Yeah, right. That sounds great. 4 or 5 p.m. Got it.
So just text me and I'll let you know if we're still on the call. Then you can join, and if the call ended, then we could just do it next month.
All right. All right. So this was a huge amount of information. I don't know how helpful it was to get a copy of the grant earlier. So this was a huge amount of information, but was this helpful?
Yeah, let me speak to that. This is very helpful. This is after 6 months of talking about
vague rumors
and others. This is the first time I can see what's going on, and it was extremely helpful. Let me ask one question that'll help me do my homework more efficiently. The distinction between assessment and screening is really important in some contexts, and it's used interchangeably in others, and I can't really tell. It looks here at DBSA, they're intentionally referring to everything as mental health screening.
Yeah.
Broader discussion within the grant and in a lot of other pages here, there's a mix of the two. And, for example, I would certainly call the PHQ-9 most definitely a screening measure.
Right.
But it's being presented as an assessment. So has there been discussion that I missed over the last 6 months about how intentional to make that distinction or intentionally not to? Right.
That's a great point, and I've had similar conversations with Paul RBC, and so in the big picture, the way that I would like to get all this organized is that assessment is not just a score. It's the interpretation, the context, the gestalt. And the things that we're putting up for the most part are scales, where all the items are hanging together to give us one piece of information about one particular construct or hypothesis. And the screening versus assessment distinction, in the most technical sense, screening is, as I understand it, and please tell me if this is the way you're thinking about it, screening would be something which is short and designed to catch an issue if it's there, and trigger more detailed follow-up. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to maximize sensitivity to people that actually have what we're looking for, and maybe willing to tolerate lower specificity, because we're not going to make a high stakes decision just on the basis of this. We're going to follow up. So if we go back to the thinking noises, if we go back to, is this slide big enough for you to be able to see?
Yes.
Okay, great. I said that this was one of the more complicated ones. What we've got is 5 score bands here: very low, low, neutral, high, very high. And some people would use this particular measure as a screener, and they would say, we're going to divide everybody into 2 scores, low risk score, and whoop, you got at least a high enough that we should talk more score.
Mhm.
So they might collapse very low and low into the probably not, and then very high and high would definitely be, you just tested positive. And in a screening setting, we might go ahead and chuck in the scores that we would call neutral. Say, if we do that, we're setting a lower bar. We're not going to tell you have depression, but including these people is going to miss fewer that actually have depression, but they have borderline scores. And so your distinction is an excellent one. And the way that I've been thinking about it in my own research and teaching is, if people can tolerate more complexity, we can pull more information out of the test rather than just saying low score, high score. We can go with here low, medium, and high, or and on the back end, the very high risk scores are actually changing the probability of a depression diagnosis more than the moderately high ones. Are you already familiar with the predictive powers, positive and negative predictive
Mhm.
power? And
Yes.
yeah, so so 20 years ago, I read a couple articles in a book from Evidence-Based Medicine about how sensitivity and specificity are nice, but they're not answering the question that a clinician or a patient wants answered. The predictive values are, but the problem is that they're so tied to the base rate that somebody can't write an article and say, I can tell you exactly what percentage of people that score high on this. The back end, what I'm trying to do is make it so that people who are just like, just tell me what I got and what it means. We're not over interpreting it. So we're writing the language to be like, you got a risky score. Click here if you want to know more about it. What we're trying to get programmed in is to actually, the next iteration of this would be, what type of setting are you working in? Are you in a private practice? Are you in an outpatient clinic? Are you in community mental health? To be able to make some educated choices about the starting probability, the prior probability. And what we already have gathered is the information to take what was the probability before the result? How risky is the result? Combine the two for you and have that be the feedback.
Okay, I think that helps.
Excellent. Other questions, thoughts, comments? We can still do a couple and still end on time or early.
So one thought would be adding an autism screener on the parent about child side of life. I know that's always
Okay.
a rough area, but to grow, at least out here, it's one of the main things that school psychologists get to assess for.
Huh.
Because we don't have an equivalent of teach, and we have very few community providers
Interesting.
that do developmental disabilities. And so most of the autism screening here is going to happen in kindergarten, first grade, second grade-ish, which is way late developmentally, but.
Yeah. We, 2 weeks ago, we met with Tom Frazier and had him looking at the suite of information that we gathered around autism. And so he's the chief scientific officer of Autism Speaks, and also is a a friend and a researcher. We published a fair amount together. So he gave us input, and we're going to have links to the MChat. And the big issue there is that the best stuff either costs money or it takes a lot of training.
Yeah.
But so we know which ones we would want to program, and then just talk with Tom and Kathy Lord and people about what's the right disclaimer. Other thoughts? Well, I'm super excited about how this is developing, and I'm very, very grateful for everyone clearing a big chunk of Monday afternoon to get on the call and be able to meet each other. I'm very much looking forward to next steps.
Yeah, this Eric, this reminds me of grad students often will do dissertations that if a professor were to submit a grant for, it'd be like a multi-million-dollar grant, and somehow the grad students show that you don't need millions of dollars to do the work that we make. So it's really impressive what has been built here on a shoestring, and so the group, if you could just pass that along to HCAPS, I know that they're working like crazy, and it's exciting what they're doing.
Well, thank you for that.
Awesome. All right, so my homework is send the link to the presentation, and I'm going to call out the specific slides that have the menu options for Paul and David to look at. And I'll reiterate the 3 things that we'll try to do on the call tomorrow. And otherwise, thank you guys a ton. I'm really excited.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
See you tomorrow.
Hasta mañana.